I was recently given this non-working Mattel Intellivision game console by a subscriber. And in today's video, I'm gonna be opening it up, trying to fix it, and then restoring this important piece of gaming history back to its former glory.
Big thanks to Richard Coleman for sending me Intellivision.
Now, the Intellivision, released in 1979, has a very special place in gaming history. It was designed to rival the Atari 2600, and it was the first 16-bit game console.
I compared Atari baseball with Intellivision and found Intellivision played much more like real baseball. In my opinion, if you try them both, there's only one conclusion you can come to: Intellivision from Mattel Electronics.
Now, it did actually have better graphics and sound than the Atari, but it really became known for these strange disc-style controller things. Now, obviously, it never outsold the Atari 2600, but to this day, it still has a loyal fan base of people who love the consoles and the games. And that's all great, but this one doesn't work. Now, overall, it doesn't appear to be in that bad physical shape. It's just dirty.
Brother,
But before I open it up, I'm gonna test it just to make sure it doesn't work. But how do you even connect this thing to a TV? Well, coming out of the console is one RCA cable. You know, RCA, those three colored prongs that you can plug into almost any older and even some new TVs. So instead of plugging the RCA cable directly into the TV, it has to be converted with a special adapter. Now, all this device does is convert an RCA input into a coaxial input. And coaxial, this connector right here, is still used for cable television today. Once you plug the coaxial output from the Intellivision into the input of the TV, then you flip the Intellivision over, and on the bottom you can see that there's a switch between channel 3 and channel 4. Say you choose channel 3, then you actually have to flip the channel 3 on the TV.
I'm so sorry for anybody who grew up in the 1970s and 80s.
Then you insert your game, in my case, Donkey Kong, and with any luck, nothing happens. Now let's go ahead and open this thing up and see if we can figure out why it's not working. After removing some very stubborn screws that probably haven't been touched since 1979, we get our first look at the internals of this beautiful, oh my, yeah, that's rust. Lovely. I then started delicately disassembling the vintage console, starting with the power supply. Now, with this thing being as old as it is, and since it probably hasn't been opened since it was manufactured, I came across some of the crunchiest screws I've ever seen.
nice.
Ooh.
And after making some pretty questionable noises, I was able to remove the transformer. After unplugging both controllers from the logic board, I removed the plate the controllers rest on. I mean, look at how rusty and grimy these screws are. And after all that, the logic board is finally free. I love how modular this console is. Okay, so this thing is as disassembled as it's gonna get, but before we clean anything, it's time to start troubleshooting. And when it comes to troubleshooting older, more simple electronics, a continuity tester is our best friend. Essentially, all it does is run small amounts of current through a wire or a circuit to make sure it's not broken. And if the circuit or the wire is intact, it'll light red. So the first and most obvious thing I'm gonna test is the power switch to make sure that the logic board is actually getting current. Now, no current is flowing, so I'm assuming it's in the off position. And after switching it on, we can see that current flows normally. Science. Okay, so now that we know that the power switch works, it's time to take off the shroud and start testing the logic board. To remove the shroud, I used a heat gun to melt the solder that secures these metal tabs to the logic board. Now yes, I know, using a utility knife to cut through solder is a little unconventional, but hey, it works. And with all the tabs free, we can finally remove the shroud, giving us our first look at the 46-year-old brain behind this incredible console. And wow, look at these traces. I guess the engineers decided not to follow the 45-degree trace rule. What? No, I don't want to do that.
I then proceeded to continuity test almost the entire logic board before I discovered this incredibly crusty ribbon cable. Age had clearly not treated this thing very well, so I decided to test it. And what do you know? Every single one of the traces worked. Oh, except this last one. Yeah, that last one's cooked. But it won't be that difficult to fix, right? It's the next day, and I've just spent 4 hours doing the sketchiest soldering job of my life. Basically, I stole 5 wires from a PC fan and then soldered them directly onto the ribbon cable connector on the logic board. And then I cut up the ribbon cable and soldered a male connector to the end of each wire. And the reason this was so difficult was I did all this without flux. Was it super difficult? No, but it wasn't easy. Anyway, I ran some continuity tests and it seems like everything has a good connection. But just to make sure everything was secure, I glued over it and then added a zip tie to keep the wires together. So if my DIY ribbon cable works as it should, well then we've eliminated one problem we know about. But just to eliminate all doubt, I decided to test something I've been suspicious of from the beginning, which is this old school RF to coaxial adapter. Now, I don't know much about this thing, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's pretty old. Thanks for that. So I decided to continuity test it. And regardless of the position of the switch, there was no continuity between the RCA port and the coaxial port. So in my opinion, not having any output from our console could potentially be a problem. Now here's the thing, you can buy an RF to coaxial adapter on Amazon for like $6. I'm a broke college student who's only home on spring break until tomorrow, so I don't have time to ship anything here. So I'm gonna build one.
Now the nice thing about these two cables is that they're pretty much identical. There's a core and a shield, they just have 2 different connectors. So all I did was expose both the core and the shield of both wires, then joined the 2 cores together, insulated it, and joined the 2 shields. Then I added some duct tape just to make sure the cable stays strong, and that's it.
Okay, one sketchy cable later, and we're at the moment of truth. I have all the essentials here, so I'm gonna plug everything together and then let's see what happens. All right, plugging in the game, setting to channel 3. Setting the TV to channel 3, and finally turning it on. No way! Dude, it works! This might not look that impressive, but if you saw how jank some of the work I did was, Okay, I hate to say this, but I'm not gonna play it until the thing is cleaned and put back together, so roll the cleaning montage.
I started by giving all the plastic pieces a good cleaning with some warm water. Now, I wanted to see if using some isopropyl alcohol would clean up the metallic surface on the faceplate, but all it did was wipe off some of the ink. So learn from my mistakes and don't use alcohol. I then cleaned both controllers and used a Q-tip and some isopropyl alcohol to clean the power supply. Next, I sanded down the logic board cover in an attempt to remove some of the rust, and it turned out pretty well. And after reattaching the shroud, the logic board was reinstalled into the shell. From there, it was a simple matter of reinstalling everything in the reverse order I disassembled it. Hey guys, I know you hear this all the time, but if you're liking the video so far, please hit that like button. It doesn't cost a thing and it seriously helps the channel out. Thanks so much for your support.
And there it is, it's finally done. Yeah, it isn't perfect and we made a couple mistakes, but hey, that's all part of the process. And honestly, I am pretty proud that I was able to fix it. But enough talking, let's play some Donkey Kong. Now obviously, the Intellivision has 2 controllers, so this is my brother Lane.
Howdy.
Lane, what do you think of this thing?
Honestly, like, if I saw that at a supermarket, I would not think that's a console.
Really?
No. Is that the controller?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Yeah, so you pull them out like this. You wanna grab yours?
The most goofy thing I've seen. It looks like one of those old telephones, like beep, beep, beep.
All right, Lane, have you ever played Donkey Kong before?
Yeah, on the Wii though, not on this thing.
Do you want to play Donkey Kong?
On the magical space telephone?
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
Round 1.
one.
What is that? A dog? Are we supposed to run away from the green apples?
Yep, and you can climb too. Yep.
You suck.
Woo! I about got decapitated.
Yeah, by the weird space boogers.
Space boogers. No! I got my foot. I feel like I'm Mama Bear from like Berenstain Bears.
Yeah.
Bruh.
Oh, you suck.
Let's go! See, I don't suck.
Wait, now it's a green squirrel? What is...
Alright, let's see if you can do any better.
Alright, the boogers are coming down. It's not... No. Alright, but my question is, what is the green thing in the corner? My controller disconnected. What's the jump button? Go.
Go down! Go down! Alright, Lane, what did you think of the Intellivision?
You know, like, for being like 40 years old or whatever it wasn't bad, but like the graphics, they were graphics. They weren't great.
Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, what should they do?
Subscribe!
You heard the man. Richard Coleman, this song goes out to you. Is it hard to go through life being such an epic dude? You're a legend, Rich, the real MVP. Chuck Norris saw you and he said, that dude is manlier than me.